We're continuing our series today. What you take with you is what you leave behind. And today we're talking about judgment. There was an error in the bulletin, probably for my mistake, but we were going to read a little bit more in 1 Corinthians. And it talks about when the people were with Moses and they complained about things and they wanted to do evil things and that they didn't believe in God and they tested God. And that God wouldn't allow us to be tempted beyond the ability that we have. And he would tempt us, or we would be tempted, but God would also supply us what we needed to be able to endure that temptation. And Luke 13, verses 1 through 9, it talks about Jesus talking to the Pharisees. And he says, some of those that were present on that occasion told Jesus about the Galileans, whom Pilate had killed while they were offering sacrifices. He replied, "Do you think the suffering of these Galileans proves that they were more sinful than the other Galileans? No, I tell you, but unless you change your hearts and your lives, you will die just as they did." What about those 18 people who were killed when the Tower of Siloam fell on them? Do you think that they were more guilty of wrongdoing than everyone else who lives in Jerusalem? No, I tell you, but unless you change your hearts and your lives, you will die just as they did. Jesus told this parable. A man owned a fig tree, and it was planted in his vineyard. He came looking for fruit on it and found none. He said to his gardener, "Look, I have come looking for fruit on this fig tree for the past 3 years, and I have found none. Cut it down. Why should it continue depleting the soil's nutrients?" The gardener responded, "Lord, give it 1 more year, and I will dig around it and I will fertilize it. Maybe it will produce fruit next year. If not, then you can cut it down." This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. I never got a speeding ticket when I was in high school. However, when I got older, there were those times. And I can remember the favorite speeding ticket, well, I didn't get a ticket that day. The favorite time that I got stopped was actually on the way to church. We were going to Aldersgate United Methodist Church, and it was Ashley's turn to sit up front. And Ashley has these big eyes, and she's sitting there holding my Bible, and the officer comes up and he says, "Can you tell me why you were speeding or where you're going?" I said, "We're going to church." And he looks in the car, and there's Ashley with my Bible smiling. He said, "Just slow down." I'm like, okay. So we slowed down a lot. But there were some times that, yes, I got tickets. And the first time that I got a ticket, I was petrified. I mean, not only is it scary to see those blue lights behind you, but then this person's walking to your car and they've got a gun and they've got mace and they can do bad things to you if they want to. And so he's walking to my car and he gets up there and he asks for my license and registration and I give it to him and I'm shaking the whole time because I'm petrified. And then he comes back with a ticket. And if that's not bad enough, he says, "And you'll go before the judge." And I'm like, bad people go before the judge. I don't want to go before the judge. This is a bad, bad thing. And I'm envisioning this guy sitting on this high seat like that guy, pounding a gavel, telling me that I'm guilty. "Thou shalt not speed again. You're bad. Go over here." And so I go to the courthouse that day and I dress up because you're supposed to dress up, right, if you go to court? You're supposed to look nice if you go to court. I was talking to Nick and Vanessa Morrow this morning. Do you know people actually come in their pajama bottoms and their bedroom slippers now to court? I'm like, what? I said, that shows disrespect not only for them, but for the judge. And so I go and I'm standing in this line. I didn't know this either. When you go to court for a speeding ticket, you get to stand in line with 1,000 other people who have done the same thing that you did. So you're all bad and you all get to stand in line together. Well, evidently the person behind me had a little more practice at this than me. And there's this guy coming down, and he's like, let me see your ticket. And he's getting close to me, and I'm thinking, I don't want this person to see my ticket. What's going on? And I turn around to the guy behind me. I said, can you tell me what's happening? He says, well, that's the DA. He wants to see your ticket. I said, I don't want to show him my ticket. I said, it's my own private personal ticket. I said, the judge is supposed to take care of this. And he says, no, you want him to see your ticket. And I said, why? He said, because he can reduce the charges. And he can make it so that you don't have to go before the judge. I said, ooh, I like that. And so he gets to me and he takes my ticket and he looks at it and he's like, okay, you were speeding. And I'm like, yes, sir. He says, and you da-da-da-da. I'm like, yes, sir. And he said, yeah, we can reduce this. Here you go pay the fine and go on. I'm like, okay. So what do you want me to do now? He said, pay the fine and go home. I said, okay. So what does that mean? He said, go pay the fine and go home. I'm like, okay. Because I didn't know that was not something that I had been around before. And I was thinking about how much God loves us. We have God that we're going to come before in judgment. And this whole series is about what you leave behind is what you take with you. And that comes to the judgment day, doesn't it? That comes to the day when we're going to stand before God and God is going to make a decision about us. And you know those things where we've grumbled and we've fussed about people and we've told stories or we've been mean to people. Those sins that we know we're doing, those sins that we don't know we're doing, all of those things are going to follow us. And when we get before the judge, we're going to have to answer for those. And yet we have this person who's intervening that said that he would come and be a mediator between us. And he comes to us and he says, Danielle, I know you did some bad stuff, but let's see what we can do here. Yeah, I can get that one dismissed. Don't worry about it. Yeah, you asked for forgiveness for that one. That's all good. Yeah. Now this one, he's going to ask you about this one. Okay. Well, let me talk to the judge and see what I can do. We are so blessed that we have somebody that's going to come between us and the judge. That when we go before the judge, the things that we're going to be judged for are only the things that we haven't been asking forgiveness for. When we saw the movie The Shack, the women did it on the women's retreat, at one point, Mac, who is the main character, is asked to go into a cave, and it's a cave of judgment. And you have this woman who's sitting on the judgment seat, and as he comes in, he's like, well, am I dead? And the woman's like, no, you're not dead, but this is what we're going to do. And he's like, well, I don't want to be judged if I'm not dead. And she says, oh, it's not you that's being judged. And she stands up and she walks down, and she says, you are going to be the judge today. And as he goes up and sits, you know how we would all feel very confident and get to sit there. We get to make the decisions, right? The question she asked is, of your two children, which one do you want to go to hell? That's not a question that we as parents would like to make a decision about. And so Max says, it's not fair. I don't want you to ask me this question. I don't want to make a choice between my children. And the woman says, but yes, you have to. You have wanted to judge people for so long, so now is your time to judge. Which one of your children goes to hell? And Max says, take me. Take me. Leave my kids alone. Does that remind you of somebody else? Does that remind you of what Jesus did for us? Does that not remind you the fact that Jesus intervened and he said, don't take my children, just take me. Let me pay the price. Let me be the one. Don't take their life. Don't judge them on this way. Folks, we have a God who is so loving and who is so caring that he stands between us and that judgment. And he says to us, I will do anything I can do to keep you from that judgment. I will do anything I can do to save your life. I will do anything that I can. I will dig around you. I will water you. I will fertilize you. I will talk to you. I will do whatever I can do. But if it comes next year and you're not with the program, I'm going to have to cut you down. There comes a time when it's done. This whole season of Lent, we are talking about what you're leaving behind, because those are the only things that you're going to take with you. When you get before God and God says to you, you're here for judgment, what are the things that He's going to judge you for? Are there things that you haven't asked for forgiveness? Are there things that you've done that later on you think, oh man, I did that? And it's something we need to ask for forgiveness for. I love coming over when the kids are here. And I bought this. If y'all don't know, Beth Ann sells paparazzi jewelry. And this is one that I got from her, and I just absolutely love it. And I came in the other day, and Bailey is one of the ladies at Lowell Smire. It's her granddaughter. And when I came in, she just holds her arms up. And so I get my hug from her. And as I did, she touched the heart. And before I knew it, all the kids were saying, can we touch your heart? Can we touch your heart? And I was having to go around letting them all touch the heart. And I'm thinking, they've touched my heart in so many ways. And it's not this heart I'm talking about. It's just the way that they are and how pure and how loving and how accepting. And it doesn't matter if you have on the fanciest thing in the world. It doesn't matter if you have on the dirtiest thing in the world. It doesn't matter if you match. It doesn't matter if you're fashionable. It doesn't matter if you're tall, if you're short, if you're black, if you're white, if you're purple. They don't care. They're not going to judge you. They just want to touch your heart. That is what God is asking us to do. He says, I don't ask you to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect, but you can touch somebody's heart. You can make somebody's life better. You can help somebody to smile and have a better day. I went to the nursing home yesterday to see one of the folks from Lowell that has Alzheimer's. And I went back there and I took him a milkshake, which made him smile. And Gary knows how that is. When I had my neck surgery, Gary and Kathy would bring me a milkshake. I'd always smile. I was like, yay, milkshake. But I took Coy a milkshake and he was smiling. He was happy. And the others are like, well, where's ours? I said, they didn't tell me y'all could have a milkshake. And I stood there, and as we talked, Coy doesn't remember me coming, I'm sure today. He has no memory of me being there. And it's okay. Because for the time that I was there, Coy smiled and he laughed and he enjoyed himself. And he told me jokes that he had told me 100 times before, and that's okay too. But it made a difference in his life. That's what we're called to do. I don't know if y'all know it yet, but June the 30th is the date set for the closing of Phoenix. And we're just devastated because that has been such an important part of us. And Gary and I talked about it the other day. You know, what are we going to do? How can we do this? And Gary talked about it in Methodist Men yesterday morning. We're going to have to get something together. Well, I talked to somebody last night, and we're not going to have to talk very hard, Gary. It's coming. God will continue to bless us and use us in that ministry. And I am so excited. Because in that ministry, we can go and be non-judgmental. We can touch somebody's life in a way that they may forget it, but it's okay. Their life was better for a little while. You know what they're having this week? Or the next week? They're having beef stew, potatoes, and green beans and bread. Now, I'm sorry, which one of y'all wouldn't want to come eat that? We make sure that the meals are good for them. Audrey's coming to do the potatoes, right? Yes, good. We make sure that they have good meals. When Lance did it the other day, barbecue. And when I went to get the barbecue butts, he said we need at least 7 of them. I'm thinking, these things were like giant. And he said 7, and I told the guy, I said, we need 100 pounds. And he told me, was it 4 or 5? But it was 100 pounds. We make sure that they get the food that we would feed to our family, that we would enjoy. They've gotten things from chicken wings to casseroles to everything that you can imagine. Gary was sharing that one of the guys the other day was so excited when he finally put it together and said, this church has taken care of my family on Thanksgiving for a long time. For years, this church has taken care of my family for Thanksgiving. And good chances probably Lance that took them the food. So, because Lance loads it up and takes it out. But to be able to see that those things are happening, to be able to see that we're touching folks, that we're making a difference, to see, for me, the heart of the people saying, no, we can't let this ministry go. How can we make this work? How can we make this happen? How can we not let it go? It blesses me because all we're trying to do is just touch their heart. Just plain and simple, just touch their heart and let them know that somebody cares about them. Let them know that we love them. This time that we're going through is a time for us to examine ourselves and to see, do we have any things that we should be judged for? And if we do, can we ask for forgiveness? Can we ask God to let that go? And can we let it go? But it's also a time for us not to be judgmental of others, for us to live in peace and grace and mercy, just as God gives us that peace and grace and mercy. So as we continue this Lenten journey, I ask you to judge not so that you're not judged. Amen.